Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Agents, where thriving in changing times is what we stand for. And today we're back with a discussion on all things regarding inflammation. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Karen. And yes, with during our walks where we solve all the problems of the world, Sarah and I have had in discussions for quite a while now about just knowing that so many health issues really could be simplified back to that it's inflammation. And yeah, we decided we'd do this podcast on that sort of purpose, knowing that if you've been given a diagnosis that finishes with ITIS, so itis, really, that's just saying there's inflammation there. And probably just about everybody, regardless how well they live, in 2025 has some form of inflammation just because we can't escape all the toxins that we're being exposed to that wasn't really intended for the human body to even contend with,
Mm,
as far as the quality of our water, the quality of our air, things we can't 100% control by
mm.
any means.
Yeah, what
But,
motivated me was an article in this magazine, which is a great magazine to support, and it's called Inflammatory Disease. And Anthony Samaroff, he writes pretty much what we're talking about in as far as exactly what Karen just said, not to be put off. And these little labels that people are given, it's sort of given to them as, well, this is the disease that you have. And so suddenly it's labeled. And then once it's labeled, and this is the protocol for treating this. And it's usually not a protocol for treating the underlying causes. It's just going to manage that symptom of inflammation, which if they're pharma drugs isn't going to help you very much in the long run. It's not going to get to the underlying cause. And, I'm happy to say, in my opinion, it's not even the path of least harm. And why aren't we looking at the whole person and taking the path of least harm? Because as you said, Karen, we're all suffering, most people will be suffering from inflammation, and it shows up in all sorts of ways. How many times do you hear someone say, oh, I've got plantar fasciitis, I've got hip bursitis, I've got shoulder bursitis? I hear it often in my work setting and in my classes. It's very, very common. And
well,
people
even
stay in pain.
any of the arthritis type
Mm,
rheumatoid, osteo, etc. And probably one of the most harmful things you can be told is this is your diagnosis and you've got it for life.
yes, yeah,
Can't
yeah,
do anything about it.
yeah.
We can treat the pain, but we can't, and that's just not true.
No, and never really digging into what are the underlying causes. And in a recent blog that I wrote, I actually wrote about, from a yogic perspective, arthritis isn't even considered a disease at all. It's actually considered to be something that's afflicted that person, usually from a very young age. And it's like lifestyle, mental stress, environmental stress, all those things that contribute to your body becoming sort of out of balance or in a state of dis-ease.
Yep.
Yeah. And so therefore you need to go back and address all those things. And it's usually taken a long time to manifest. You don't get arthritis overnight,
No.
but you can't fix it overnight if you want to get to the underlying cause either.
Yeah, I haven't asked him for permission to share the story, so I'm not going to say how close this person is to me. But well, I was just about to say, this guy who's now in his 60s, as a 25-year-old, had this very horrible accident, probably should have killed him, but fortunately it didn't. But he ended up with a dislocated hip. Now, I was working orthopedic nursing at the time, and one of the girls who I valued her knowledge in orthopedics. She was another nurse, but fully qualified in that stream. And she said, for the force to dislocate a 25-year-old fit and healthy male's hip, he will need a total hip replacement before he's 50. But I think she had it even younger than that, just because of the sheer physical force that happened to dislocate that hip. Well, he lived with discomfort, I would say, around his 40s, but then he totally changed his diet, and he does the intermittent fasting. Don't think he's no, he's not carnivore. He's just like he's got a fairly healthy mix of food in the way he likes to eat. And he's now in his 60s and he's never had that total hip replacement. And what's more, he's got full function. And so that tends to tell me that whatever was torn, whatever was would have been seen as destroyed, but it wasn't destroyed. He has a healthy hip. And like, if I hadn't have seen how bad things were for him after that accident, and then see him, like, he can jump up and off a truck tray, so he can put a lot of pressure. So it just shows how, if the body's given the chance, it might take time, but its ability to repair is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think we're not taught that, unfortunately, anymore.
No.
The amazing ability of the body and how everything replaces itself in a very ever-changing cycle of change. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty amazing, but you've got to be able to change your way of thinking and not get caught up in having a label. Yeah.
A label that then says, oh, I need this medication for that.
Yeah.
When if it boils down to, all the problems come back to, if you've been given a diagnosis of something finishing in itis, or even the pain one, if it's finishing with algia, ALGIA, so the fibromyalgia, if you got rid of the inflammation, I'm sure then there would be no longer, algia means pain. And so you would be reducing all those things that are going on in the body. Because pain is a warning signal. It's a good thing to have, but that's telling you, oh, I've got to change something.
Yeah. I really liked when I was writing my recent blog about inflammation and a holistic view of life, I came across the traditional Chinese medicine definition of health. So I'll read it out for you because it's so much more all-encompassing of us as multidimensional beings than the WHO definition of health. The traditional Chinese medicine is based on the belief that the human being is composed of and surrounded by an energy system or a field. This energy system is understood to resemble an electromagnetic field expressed on the minute level as the behavior of electrons and neurons, and on the gross level as the experience of vitality. The energy system is made up of energy pathways, often referred to as meridians. The pathways are believed to carry energy and information throughout the human organism to unite body, mind, and spirit. Health is seen as having a sufficient amount of energy circulating freely in the organism. And that, to me, sums up so much, because we're made up of so many channels and tubes and that carry all sorts of things, but most of all, they carry consciousness and they carry energy. And so, it's by the time we're looking at a physical manifestation of inflammation in a part of your body, there's so much been going on out in these other layers before it's even manifested into that disease state. So it's like you've got to come back to, you might treat the symptoms, but then you've got to come back to starting to put into those channels, which are out in your pranic field and even out further, to then start feeding back, start replacing that dense physical layer with healthy tissue, because you can do it. That's the incredibleness of our multidimensionality, that we can start working on ourselves from the subtle. That's what's powerful. And yeah, it's a lifestyle.
That's where your complementary therapies come into making such a difference.
And we need to invest in those. We need to invest in our health and stop paying to be sick. You know, people pay to be sick. People don't mind spending hundreds of dollars on scans and scan after scan, test after test, but pay for some natural therapy or alternative therapy. Yeah, it's got to change.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
got to change. Mm.
yeah, yeah. And it's coming back to again how you actually feel. Like, do you feel calm inside? Do you feel
Yeah.
calm in your head? You know, like it's a pretty difficult state to be in 2025. There's a lot going on, but you can get there. Like, find a meditation class, find a
Mm.
sound class, do the one-on-one stuff.
Start investing in
Don't,
yourself. Start investing
yeah,
in. And there's also so much good in the world, and nature gives you so much good and so many moments of awe and wonder. And it's like noticing those moments when nature captures your attention and feel it so that you sort of absorb it into your cells. And it's not like that fleeting thing, oh, that was a nice view this morning as I drove past the beach or past the estuary, but actually taking the time to feel it
yeah,
more than get it out of here and get it into your heart.
yeah. Yeah.
And that
And if it
starts to
doesn't
make,
feel good, what can you do about that? You know,
yeah,
there's going to be something that you can actually, okay, we can't control the pollution in the air or, you know, that sort of thing. But what can I do to manage that situation? Like, you can filter your water with to improve the quality of the water that you're consuming. You can choose good foods like
mm, mm,
as you were saying today, that you'll only look at organic and grass-fed meat, and you know, like it's making the choices where you've got choices that you
yeah,
can manage.
yeah, yeah. And at the end of the
Um,
day, people say, oh, it's really dear to eat that way. Well, it is, but once again, you're paying for your health. It's what you invest in your tissues that
mm,
matters. And you're going to pay for it the other end if you don't start looking at the labels and what you're putting in. And at the end, and also I think that, we do as a society eat too much. So you don't actually need as much food as you think you do. When you look around, most people could probably eat a lot less. So therefore you don't need as much quality rather than quantity.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, so if you end up again like that, you've been given all these different, because quite often if you're on medication for something that finishes in itis, um, the side effects are quite likely to give you another symptom that can also attract an itis. Sort of
Yeah. It
and
multiplies.
and really, at the end of the day, if you were eating foods that were anti-inflammatory and were, it goes beyond what you eat and drink. It's what you think as well.
Mm.
Many,
Mm.
many years ago, that my father was very ill and dying from cancer, and he did a cancer retreat called the Balia, I think it was Balia Foundation or something like that. It's no longer around, but it was run by a doctor and her psych husband. And it was introducing you to all the different ways you could be supporting yourself with getting well again. And it really helped Dad to have he had a good death because of the approach of what Balia Retreat did for him. But she said way back then, the saying is you might think it, but you certainly don't say it. Well, she said, actually, I don't even want you thinking that. If it's not something that's okay to say out loud,
Mm.
if your thoughts are going in that direction, that's not healthy either. And it was like, oh wow,
Mm.
wow. That was the first time. That was back in 97.
Mm.
And
And we
no,
have
96.
thousands. We have so many thoughts a day, and most of them aren't positive for most people.
Exactly.
And they end up in your tissues. Yeah, they do.
Well, I say it, probably it's not the right way to say it, but I say I'm a real wimp. If I get pain, I'm onto it. But it's not that I'm taking Panadol or, any of the medication sort of thing, I'm okay, who's the best therapist for me? And so I've got a good Bowen therapist in my life, and I've got a good Reiki person in my life. There's the stuff Sarah does, but I'm doing weekly yoga and meditation through Sarah's or not only her platform, live, face-to-face classes, but you just that's my approach, because I don't like to live with pain. And whether that makes me a wimp or whether that makes me actually smart, because pain is telling me something's not right.
But
And,
but mainly just to raise your awareness. Yeah, raise your awareness and start thinking outside the box. And a call to action from this little recording might be that you do something positive. You invest in something that's going to add to your wellness. And don't wait till you get sick and pay for something to correct the sickness. Start investing in being well.
Like even in the form of maybe you want to sit down and do some artwork, or maybe you like doing, like you do your weaving. And I've taken up knitting this winter. I haven't done that for a very long time. It could be that you're just getting pleasure out of something you create. You might be fabulous in the kitchen. Not my favorite place to be, but like some people love to create. Just make sure it's healthy food. Or you're making it from scratch, and then it's probably okay because you've made it, you haven't had those additives that go into things that are a bit more processed. So, well, like we all want to be well. We all want to feel good. We all want to be participating in this life that we've been given. So go out there and explore and take that action.
Be proactive. Yeah.
Be proactive. So, thriving in a changing world, and there is always more to learn. And just keep going onwards and upwards, in the sense of it feels better all the time. And we wish that if you do have pain and discomfort, that you can find something that works for you. But it's hard to do the research sometimes, but ask around and find out what's worked for other people, and you just might find that's a solution for you too. So
we'll be back.
See you next time.
Bye.
This content is created for informational purposes only. Always seek the guidance of a qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal health.